Anytime you hear someone that is getting a good majority of their business from one strategy, it's time to listen up. That's usually an indicator that it works and can be implemented in your business too. Our next guest takes us on his journey of pain into purpose and how he's now operating a 7-figure business with half of his business coming from SEO alone.
Calling all real estate investors. Are you ready to get off the real estate income roller coaster and learn the proven lead generation strategies the experts are using to consistently generate profitable real estate deals? Then you're in the right place. This is More Leads, More Deals, More Profits with your host, Mark Lane. Let's get started.
All right, podcast listeners, welcome back. I have an expert in lead generation and acquisition on the show. His name is Jeremy Beeland. Jeremy, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mark. Great honor to be on your show. Really a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, so let's jump into it right away. Tell the listeners a little bit about, kind of about your story of getting into real estate, how you got started, and, kind of where you're at now. Just lead us along that path.
Yeah, sure. I'll try to do the brief version of it. It's kind of a little bit of a roller coaster ride from day one. My mom and I came into this world homeless. My mom was a young mom who was unwed and had me at a really young age, and we didn't really have any money, so she was bouncing around house to house. That was how I was welcomed into this world. She had our child out of wedlock. Her family did not appreciate that so much. And then eventually she ended up finding a gentleman who later became my stepfather. And as I became like an adolescent through my childhood, we found, low class, I want to say low class, but lower end middle class, right? So we had like a nice small house. We had some nice cars and life was pretty good. Life was great. And then he went on to go start his own business as an entrepreneur, start a window cleaning job. And he left a really great manager job at a tech company back in the day. And in the process of doing that, we ended up losing everything. And so I was about 13, 14 years old, just going into high school, where we were basically, the house was foreclosed on. We went through bankruptcy, woke up in the middle of the morning, go to school. There was no cars in the driveway. They're all repossessed. So, it was just crazy. And then, from there, we just kind of bounced around, finding one place to live to another because they had no money. They had no credit. It was a really dark time in our lives. And, I ended up going to 3 different high schools by the time I was in my sophomore year. And I ended up dropping out of high school, became a troubled youth as a result of it because of everything going on. But then somehow I found, health and fitness around 20 years old, got into the gym, and it led me to a path where I actually started playing adult tackle football in a league, which led me to a friend who said, "Hey, Jeremy, I think you'd be really good at this sales job. You should come and interview for it." And I was probably about 24 years old at this time. And I was doing high-rise window cleaning, hanging off skyscrapers in Boston, making a measly $12 an hour at a $400 car that, you pray to God that would make the inspection every year. It wouldn't break down on the way to work, and the little crappy apartment. But I got the sales job and ended up getting a sales job selling copiers and printers and fax machines, and I never did sales before in my life. Matter of fact, I had to buy my first tie just to show up to this job. For the first 6 months of this job, I wore the same tie, the same 2 pairs of pants, and the same 2 shirts every single day because I had no money to buy anything else. Yeah. But I learned a lot in that time frame about cold calling, business to business sales, working with gatekeepers, generating leads for nothing. It was a great experience for me. Ended up, getting another sales job, which was selling cleaning service. And I started traveling, had great success. We started making 6 figures, got married, bought a nice house, had 2 beautiful children now that are like grown, but babies, and this was like when I was 30. Life was great, man. I had the white picket fence. I achieved the dream that as a childhood growing up with no money, literally no money, I achieved the dream. And then 2009 happened. And for your listeners, that was the year of the Great Recession. And I got my ass handed to me in that time.
What happened there?
Well, it wasn't just a housing crisis. It was also an employment crisis. So during that time, I went from making 6 figures to being out of work. And I couldn't find a job anywhere because I am a high school dropout, got my GED, but I'm a high school dropout, didn't go to college, took some college classes, but didn't really do anything. And all the people around me were being let go in their jobs. And a lot of these people were much more successful than me, much more highly educated than me. So they were taking lower paying jobs just to make ends meet on their side. So it was just pushing me down the ladder even further, to a point where I couldn't find work anywhere. I was pulling out the big old fat yellow page books back then, and I was calling every single company trying to find a job, and I couldn't find it. And now I'm on the brink of losing everything myself. My house is upside down in equity at like $150,000. There's no refinance options back then, no loan modifications. The mortgage companies were, folding left and right. It was bad. And I went into depression. I'm like, I got a, 1 and a 3-year-old, and I can't make money. I can't even put food on the table. I'm losing everything. I thought history was repeating itself. I felt like such a failure. And then after trying to do some deciding on where I wanted to go, we decided that going into the military may be my best option, so I could go in and learn a trade through the Air Force. And I wanted to go in and learn network security, because that was recession proof in my head. If I came out and I could sell firewalls and proxy servers, no matter what was happening with the economy, that would be a recession proof job. I didn't want to put myself in a position where I was in. And again, but the military, because I needed a top secret clearance, wouldn't take me unless I did not have a bankruptcy and foreclosure against me, which I was facing, because in their head, that would allow me the temptation to sell government secrets to get out of debt. That was when I was learning about real estate investing, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the cash flow quadrant, and I was really getting into all that stuff then, learning from Peter Conti and stuff like that.
What year was that?
That was 2009.
Okay.
Yep. So that's when I really started to learn about real estate investing. Back then, I had to go to the library to get CDs to listen to my car, because podcasts weren't really a thing then. So that's what I was learning. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to call one of the real estate investors around here, see if he can help me out. And my first transaction was actually being a motivated seller to a cash buyer. So this real estate investor came in, and he's like, hey, listen, I know the mortgage company you're working with, they're really difficult, they're really challenging, but I know I can get a short sale out of this, and I can help you avoid foreclosure and bankruptcy. And that was my key into the Air Force. And that's what he did. He provided certainty for my family, myself. He was able to, during that time, because we had no money, and you can't profit off of a short sale, just so your listeners are knowing, but he would buy things from us, like a shed, a washer and dryer, and was giving us cash, which was literally like clothes on my kids' back, Christmas gifts, food, right? Like bare necessities, and it was much needed. So he allowed me to...
Let me interject there for a second. I think it's such an important note to realize is, like you said, he provided certainty. So many people that don't know what we do, think that we're out there taking advantage of people. And we know, especially from an experience like that, where it's very firsthand, where an investor saved your life to a certain degree, right? Like they provided certainty, they provided stability for your kids, like all that, all those things. So it's just a really important thing for, I think, the listeners to absorb if they're ever concerned with, like, how are people going to view you, that type of thing. Like, sure, yes, we get some pushback sometimes from people, but the people that we help them significantly. So it's such a good piece there.
Yeah, thank you. And I couldn't agree more. That him providing certainty was very, very important to me. Good people fall on hard times, right? And he gave me a reset button in my life. And if it wasn't for him then, I wouldn't be here on your podcast today. So I owe so much to him. And I have no idea how much money he made, Mark. Yeah. Honestly, I don't care. I know you hear that a lot from your sellers, right? When you're providing that much value, they don't care. I went into the Air Force at 33 years old, just before the age cutoff of 34. I was in basic training with a bunch of 17-year-old kids making $32,000 a year, a far cry from the 6 figures I was making just 2 years earlier. My nickname was Gramps because I was so much older than all these 17-year-old kids, right? But it allowed me an opportunity. I left my family for 6 months to build on myself. I was a shell of who I was. I took that situation really hard and personally, and it allowed me to rebuild myself. Came back out, struggled to find work, finally found work, ended up getting divorced. And then moved out onto my own, and we had joint custody of the kids. Now I'm approaching 40 years old. I built myself back up to another sales job where I'm making 6 figures again. I'm a divorced dad of two kids at this point, adolescent age going into preteen age, and I'm hitting 40, and I'm like, what if this happens again? What do I do? Like, what if the owner of my company sells it? I had this fear. I didn't want to be homeless for like the fourth time what it felt like, right? It just felt like history kept repeating itself. And I knew I wanted to take things into my own control, and I was learning about real estate investing again. I was really into it. I came across Tom Kroll's Wholesaling podcast, and I listened to that thing while I traveled around the country for a whole year with analysis paralysis. I said, I'm going to do it. I don't know how to flip yet. I don't know how to buy and hold, but wholesaling, if I can learn how to get properties at the lowest barrier of entry, because I didn't know I could use other people's money at that time. I'm like, this is it. But I had no money to join the coaching program, had no money to start it. Even though I was making six figures, I was still living paycheck to paycheck. So I sold my townhouse. Had some equity in it. I moved my kids into a crappy little 2-bedroom apartment, and we spent $5,000 on a coaching program, $6,000 in marketing, and that was my $11,000 that started the business. The other $6,000 that we made went towards credit card debt. Went on to do my first deal. I have the check right here. $5,000 in 90 days. Thanks, Tom Kroll.
That's amazing. That's such an amazing end to that story. And I know you probably got a little bit left there, but like when I talk to people, when we talk about, building wealth or getting started in business, it's like everybody wants to spend as little as they possibly can. They want to make as much as they can. They don't want to have any risk, like all those factors. And, I feel like the main contributor is they're too comfortable. They're too comfortable and they don't want to lose that comfort zone, right? Whereas you didn't really have much comfort. There was constant discomfort. I just had a conversation. I'm not going to go into it recently, but it was a guy had gone through such traumatic events in his life where he never cared about comfort. And so therefore he was willing to take more risk, willing to go all in. And that's exactly what you did. I mean, to sell your house, like I'm sure you had debt on the house, like you sold your house, which probably got you out of debt. You went into an apartment, reduced your expenses, and went all into marketing. Like that's amazing. It's
Thank you. Really cool. I burned the boats. It had to work at that point, Mark. If it didn't work, I had no other option, right? I wasn't going to get the money back. And, that program taught us how to do our first deal in 90 days, went on to failed our way forward to do 10 more deals that year for like a 73K, but it built the foundation of something great, right? And we kept reinvesting into more coaching and everything else. And here we stand today.
I mean, it proved concept. We don't usually get rich in the first couple of years. I don't know anybody that does, but you prove concept, and then you just continue to reinvest into the business. You continue to reinvest into yourself, and you just get better and better and better. Like that's such a good story. I love that.
Thank you.
All right, so that's kind of your history of getting into it. So let's now talk about kind of where you're at now. How many deals would you say you've done to date?
Yeah, so as of today, we're around 425 off-market deals. Those come in different variations of wholesales, double closes, flips, buy and holds, but we're an off-market acquisition company now. Back then we started as wholesalers, but today we're all about acquiring properties off-market. Our disposition strategies vary deal to deal.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to break those down in a second. Have you ever really acquired much from the MLS? I know you sell a lot on the MLS. Have you ever acquired much from the MLS, or did you kind of start? It sounds like you started in a time frame when the MLS was dying off.
So I have one deal that I got off the MLS. It's a burr that I'm working on right now, and I wish I never kept it because there was a reason why I was sitting on the MLS, and I got sucked into thinking about how it could work. So my one deal off the MLS out of 425 plus deals has been not a good one. Live and learn. Massive imperfect action, but no, I do not buy anything off the MLS. I have no interest.
Well, it's funny. So like when I started in 2010, so 14 years into this, and when we started, we were going nuts on the MLS, making 20, 25 offers a day. We were buying 30, 40 houses a year off the MLS because there's so much inventory. And now like everything's reversed, where there really is very, very few good deals. And I can't say there's none. In fact, I have one of my coaching students just locked up 3 last month and doing great from it. Yeah. So every market's a little bit different, but learning how to attract deals direct to seller is where it's at. That's always where you're going to find your best deals. So let's jump into that, kind of break down, your lead generation strategies, kind of what that looks like for you. So if you can kind of give listeners a little bit of that breakdown, how's that look?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried various forms over the years, right? And the one consistent one that we've done, and even though we've gone away from it at times, we always come back to it, has been direct mail. It's what generated my first deal and has generated most of my deals since day one. Again, we've at times left away from it, I think more because I wasn't watching my KPIs and more because I was overspending rather than really working our, you can overspend in marketing
Oh
and
yeah.
do yourself a disservice. And I've been guilty of that a few times. To think that I just need more leads, I need to spend more is not the right mentality.
No.
You need to do better on handling your leads, which is a lesson that I've learned over the years.
Right.
But today, what we do is our three best marketing channels over the last few, like 5, 6 years, has been SEO, search engine optimization, PPC, which is pay per click, and direct mail. On top of that, we are been working now the last few months with direct streaming TV ads that we're working with. That has worked pretty good for us. It's been a little slow, but we're giving it 6 months to evaluate the data. We're about 4 months in and quite a few deals from it.
Okay.
So we're monitoring that. And then, with our follow-up, we're really about the follow-up, Mark, more than anything. We
Okay.
generate the leads, but we nurture, 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 nurture.
Okay. And I apologize. We broke up a little bit when you were talking about your lead generation strategies. I think you said direct mail, PPC, and SEO. Is that right?
Correct. Yep, that's right.
All right. So let's jump into those. So tell us a little bit about how the SEO works, because I know there's people around the country that are utilizing it and doing fairly well. Is that something you guys do yourself? Is that something you have a service that does for you? How's that work?
Yeah, no, we don't do it ourselves. I'm not very tech savvy. We early on invested into Carrot website. We don't use them anymore, but that's what we invested in when we first started, which kind of had a built-in SEO component and search engine optimization. So for some of the listeners that don't know, if you just write I want to sell my home fast in a city, right? You're going to have a list of people that come up, and getting ranked at that top is a really difficult challenge. You have to spend a lot of time and effort through content and everything else. Fortunately, when we came in, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. So we were already in like the top 10 when we came in. And then we've just put in a lot of content on our Facebook pages and blogs. And then we hired a company that took over our SEO and PPC after a couple years, which made it consistent. The SEO took years, Mark, like years to really gain momentum. Now we're like pretty much one in all keywords here in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, in our area.
Oh, wow.
And most keywords that matter, but it took us many, many years to get there. And I have no idea how much money, a lot. But as we stand here today, especially in 2024, it's probably, it is our best marketing channel in 2024. We've yielded more results from just SEO than anything.
So that's really good insight. For the listeners, that means be patient, be willing to stick with it. Like in my book, one of the things to talk about is marketing stamina, is being willing to have that stamina to see it through for months, potentially years. And sometimes we don't get the payoff right away. And that usually means we shouldn't be going too heavy into it, because we don't want to be too much money out of pocket if we're not seeing a return. But we need to stick with it for long enough until we start to see the result. Because, as they say, all marketing works. It's just a matter of tweaking it and finding what works for you.
Couldn't agree more. SEO is definitely the long game. And ask yourself, are you coming into this business to make a year, 2 or 3 years, or are you looking to do this for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years,
Exactly.
right? If that's the case, find a way to put it into your budget and just kind of as a savings account and invest into that. And a couple years down the road, it will pay off big time.
What percentage of your deals would you say is coming from SEO right now?
I'd have to pull the KPI data, but off the top of my head, I'd probably say close to 50% right now.
Wow, that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
so that's getting me fired up to figure out what I can do there.
And it's been like that since the end of last 2023. We actually went away from PPC the end of 2023 because it wasn't performing. We ended up changing providers just a couple months ago. Yeah. So for the first time in 5 years, we went like 7 months without PPC, and we were still getting internet leads. We were closing deals every single month as a result of the SEO.
One thing that I've noticed is, I'm sure you'll agree with this, is that there's a synergistic effect that happens when you have multiple marketing avenues working for you at the same time. Like, for example, we got a PPC lead. I just went on it yesterday, where that guy had mentioned he's been getting my direct mail for years. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, he's like, I've been getting direct mail from you and from other people for years. He's like, and other people keep dropping off, and yours just keep coming. He's like, that's kind of showed me that that you're here to stay. You're probably more professional, more permanent. But we never got the call from direct mail. We got the call from PPC. So it's like he went online to do the research. Our ad popped up. So there's definitely that synergistic effect that happens from having multiple lead generation strategies.
100%. And, that has happened to us many times over the years, and
Yeah.
there's been a lot of times where we're like, yeah, we have a stack of postcards that you've been sending us for like 2 years, and they
Yep.
finally decide to call. But yeah, a lot of times they just look you up online and call that way.
Okay. When you were doing the SEO more, or let's say when, I know you're still doing it, but when you were spending more money on it, like how much were you spending in order to get it built up and to gain some momentum?
On the SEO,
Yeah.
probably around $5,000 a month on average.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I think we started out around 3,500, and then it kind of built up to like 5,000. Right now, we're probably somewhere around the $3,000 mark to have a company manage it for us.
And so when you were spending 3,000 to 5,000, like at what point were you spending that? How long were you spending that before you started to see some ROI there?
Probably a handful of months, probably say about 6 months. It was many years ago, but it didn't take us too long. Fortunately, the market we were in was, we didn't have a lot of competition when it came to SEO and PPC, so we were able to see results pretty good. Back then, we were using Bateman Collective, and they yielded really good results for us.
That's some grit, though. I mean, $3,000 to $5,000 a month for 4 to 6 months without seeing much result. That's some grit. That's some staying power.
I've been carelessly overspending for marketing for many parts of my career.
Right.
I'm much better at it now, but as I mentioned earlier, you can overspend, and I've been one of those. I've been guilty of that a lot in my career.
We have too. One of the things I've found though is that especially when you're dealing with a service, that there's always that 6-month commitment that they say, well, it's going to take 6 months to start. So that's a really good tie-in for them to say, well, like now I've got this customer in for 6 months. And there's really no guarantee. But what I've noticed is with most good marketing channels that we can usually see a positive return within about 3. If we're not seeing it within 3, then there's something wrong. It's either they're not doing the good job, we're underspending. There's something going on.
Yep. And that's why if we have third parties, we meet with them every month to reevaluate, the KPIs, what's going on, and try to make more tweaks, right? The idea is really to try to make it work, and sometimes they're not perfect either, but with our information, their information, we can usually get it right. Sometimes you don't, then we just look for other third-party vendors.
Yeah, awesome. So there's so many good nuggets that are getting dropped that I kind of want to just refresh them for listeners. And so in case anybody's listening and they're not quite familiar with what some of this stuff means, like KPIs means key performance indicators. That's what you're tracking when you're looking into when you're doing your marketing. You're tracking your key performance indicators that tell you how well you're performing. Tells you exactly how well your marketing's doing. Without tracking, you're going to overspend, just as Jeremy's talking. You're not going to be able to read the data to know what decisions to take. So it's critical that once you're marketing, that you're tracking everything that's going on, tracking your numbers. Another thing that Jeremy mentioned is, dealing with service providers. So when you're dealing with service provider, whether that is somebody that's running your Google ads, your SEO, Facebook ads, or really almost anything else, is checking in with them on a consistent basis. It probably should be monthly. I know we've been in the habit, and just like sounds like you have, where you might go months without really having much communication there. You're just kind of letting it ride and hoping that everything's going to work out, and that's just not the way to run the business. When you're having consistent communication with that service provider, one, they know that you're staying on top of them to where they're not going to feel like they can just like let it ride and not really continue to try to dig in and make it better. And really, like, I look at it as it's kind of a partner, like it's a key partner of our team where you want to be building this and getting better together, right? You want them to be getting better as a service, and you want your results to be getting better as for return on your investment.
100%. Right. Couldn't agree more.
Good stuff.
Well said.
All right. So You're primarily SEO, PPC, direct mail, all fantastic. I would agree. Like we're primarily PPC and direct mail. Hearing your results, we're gonna figure out how to add SEO in there. That's just too big a result, potentially 50%, to not say there's something that I'm missing. And I think that's like, as listeners, even as myself, like, I've got plenty of experience, but having people like Jeremy on is giving us the answers, right? It's giving us the answers of what we need to be looking at. So when I'm hearing somebody say, well, I'm getting 50% of my deal flow from this specific lead generation strategy, and I'm not using that, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars per year minimum that we're missing out on because we're not maximizing that strategy.
Yeah, for sure, Mark. And one thing I would add to that for your listeners that I think is a critical component to our success in SEO and even PPC, and just as a company in general, as we've been very diligent as getting Google reviews over the years, which help feeds the algorithm,
Okay.
right?
Good.
So in our market, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, we are the most positively viewed company in our area. There's not anybody comes close to as many testimonials, Facebook reviews, Google reviews than us. So every time we close a deal, we're pushing hard to get those Google reviews, those 5-star reviews, which just helps feed the algorithm to have us get to the top of the SEO ladder, right? And also provides a lot of certainty, as we talked about earlier, to people who are vetting us out compared to some of our competition.
For sure. So I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind. So I have terrible Google reviews, almost non-existent. I'm not tech savvy as the leader of the company. I mean, I know that you're not either. It sounds like you have people that are, though. That's not our strength at all. So my Google reviews it's not that I have bad, I just don't have many, a handful. So how are you getting that done? Like, what's your system for Google reviews? Like, who are you using? Can
Great
you kind of?
question. All right. So you can, once you get Google verified, they can give you like this link, which you can just basically text to somebody to fill out the Google review. Basically, like you would share anything else, right? Here's a Facebook link. Here's a link to this, right? It's a link. What we found has worked really well for us. We used to do this as video testimonials, but transitioned to Google once we started to go SEO, and some people leave us Facebook stuff as well. But we always try to go to the closing when our sellers are closing, because they're getting the check, it's becoming real. You
Yep.
fixed their problem, right? This is when they're the happiest. So at that time, we would used to get video testimonials, but now it would be like, hey, before we leave this closing, I'm going to text you this Google review, and we make them, we put them on the spot, fill it out right now. It'll really help us a lot. And usually they're like, hey, I have no problem with doing that, right? I'm so happy, I'm going to do it. Catch them in that moment. Because if we don't, we know a lot of people we work with are habitual procrastinators. And once the deal's done, you're going to be chasing them, and it's going to be really, really challenging. So even if you don't go to a lot of closings, I recommend going to the closings just for the Google review. I mean, we're approaching 90 Google reviews right now. We got another 25 video testimonials, another 25 Facebook reviews. I mean, when you have over 100 reviews and people start looking at that, and the next competition has 30, 40, 50, and you're
Yeah.
over 100, I mean,
Tons of
it's
social
hard
proof.
it's social proof. Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. That's so good. Uh, yeah. So I had done that. I think last year. It was something we were working on. We were kind of doing. We had the exact same philosophy. We were going to go do videos. We get pictures, post them on Facebook, do all these things, and so we had the exact same philosophy of like, you know what? Let's go try to put them on the spot a little bit. Try to get that review. And we even brought in like gift basket, like some type of reciprocity play of like, hey, we're gonna give you something. Let's get something back. But it did feel uncomfortable. I could definitely tell that they felt that immediate pressure. So maybe it was just a matter of like, I wasn't used to it, and it was just a little bit too uncomfortable like the first time. And so it was like, like we kind of pulled back. But I mean, it sounds like you had the exact same, you're utilizing the exact same plan as what we had planned to.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some people that felt a little put out on it, but at the end of the day, they're super happy, right? And we've at that point, they're just so thankful everything happened. And we say, what would really help us a lot, right? We've been able to provide value and get this deal done. What would really help us so we can help more people, right? And reach more people is you just taking 10 seconds to do this review for us. It would mean the world to us and our family and our business. And usually everybody's so happy and so kind to do it. It's very rare that somebody says, no, I'm not comfortable, or I do it later. Very rarely does that happen.
And even if there's a little bit of discomfort there, everybody forgets 5 minutes after they walk out.
Yeah, when they go to cash the check. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So let's jump into, well, first of all, before we jump into something, how are you getting your deals sold? Break that down a little bit of, you're doing a good amount of volume, doing great on lead generation. How are you selling your deals? And maybe share a little bit of kind of like what your average profit is right now.
Yeah, so we started out as wholesalers, so we would just assign everything to our cash buyers, and eventually, we fell into this trap of like the CBE, which we call the cash buyer employee, where you just rely on a few cash buyers, and then you become the motivated seller to them because they provide surety, but you're selling at a discount to just get that surety. Thanks to the great Todd Toback, he taught me how to leverage the MLS, and we started marketing our properties on the MLS. Now, every market is different, so you have to check with your real estate commission in your state and a local real estate attorney if it's legal where you are. But where we are, it is. It just has to be done a certain way. And we started doing that. And when we show our houses, we have what we call an inspection walkthrough, which is kind of like an open house where we drive all the traffic in there for like an hour. Everybody does the due diligence, one-time showing. We used to do it to our cash buyers, but once we added the MLS, we had a lot more traffic coming in, which drove the price up. So
you're not listing through a real estate agent. You are somehow marketing it yourself.
We have a real estate agent that's in-house. He works for a separate brokerage, but he works as our disposition manager, and our real estate agent sells all of our stuff. We went from basically having an average assignment of $20,000 back then to literally $35,000 overnight, almost doubled by just getting more eyes on the MLS to our properties. And then from then, I was so a little frustrated with certain things that we decided to learn about private money, and we started to leverage using other people's money, not hard money, not lending companies, but true private money, people that we know in our network that have money they want to lend to get great returns. And that was a game changer in our business too. So now, we have this business, and it's been like this for years, where we have deals coming in every single month. We sometimes wholesale, right? We market a lot of it, but sometimes we take properties down. We do wholetailing, which is, we clean them out and for a few bucks, put them right back on the market in a week or two. Sometimes we cherry pick our flips. If we feel like we could do a light remodel and make a really big return, we'll take those projects on. The bigger projects, we look to resell. But a lot of the deals we do, Mark, are really actually houses that would never fall into the category of a real estate investor. There's not enough meat on the bones. They don't need a lot of love. They're kind of nice homes that are ready to be move-in ready. But the situation is still distressed. So we get nice homes on a discount all the time. And we probably sell a majority of our deals to retail buyers, which is basically somebody looking to buy their first home. Most of our deals go to those type of buyers, probably half, if not more.
And are those being sold? How are those being sold, as like novations or wholesale? Or
we do a few novations a year, not a lot. It's not a big part of our exit strategy. Mostly just through double closings and wholesales.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. So in my state in Iowa, they recently passed a law to where we can no longer do wholesales. And it's actually official beginning of July. So it's like we're finishing up a couple now. But because of that, we're having to shift to a wholesale type of business model. And so like there was a little bit of panic there. I wasn't really too worried because I figured I had some contacts, but we're able to find like one lender that with potentially millions to lend. And I mean, it's not cheap private, it's a little bit more expensive, but rather than us having to have 20 different people to borrow from, it's one person or company. But then we're just going to be putting everything on the MLS. And so when I was thinking about that, though, I'm like, it makes it even more streamlined and even simpler business. Like I'm always trying to figure out how can I maximize my profits and have the most simple business possible. Like I don't want to have a bunch of salespeople out there run around. I don't want to have a bunch of dispositions. I don't want tons of VAs. Like to me, that just gets too burdensome.
Language.
It becomes a management business. I don't want to manage. I want to do deals.
Same here.
I want to make money. So. Yeah. But anyway, so now we're looking at it, and like we're already doing really well as far as our average profit this year. But I expect that to jump up even more once we go 100% wholetailing. So it sounds like it's a good majority of what your business model is.
Yeah, and fortunately, unfortunately, we're not in that situation that Iowa is with the making it illegal, and I know that's happening more and more. But we average $35,000, as a wholesale, but right now we're 62,000 in 2024 as a wholesale.
Wow.
It's actually been our number one exit strategy, even over flips, as a net profit percentage over the last handful of years. So I love that exit strategy. And, I don't want to go into a different direction, but I'm okay with these laws coming into place because I think they're needed. I think there's a lot of bad people out there, not necessarily doing things bad, but they don't have good business practices that are doing a lot of harm to these people. And I think that's why these laws are coming in, which actually makes it better for you and I, but showing the reality is like, if you want to be successful in this business, you need to start treating it like a professional business. It could start as a side hustle, but those days of just getting a list and texting and then stringing sellers along, hoping that you find a buyer, those days are coming to an end. And now it's time to take it more seriously and be more professional.
100%. It's exactly what my attorney said too. We had the conversation when this law came into place, and he said, I think it's just going to benefit you. He's like, it's going to benefit you and the other few people in the market that are professionals.
Yep.
He said all the hobbyists are going to fall to the wayside. They're not going to be able to raise the money. Therefore, they won't be able to stay in the game. So I think for the people that really want to dig deep and have some roots, it's all it's going to do is help us.
Agreed. Yeah. And then with texting dying and, the regulations now with cold calling as well, and along with this, we're going to see some transition over the next few years. And a lot of people are going to be out of this business. And the few that remain are going to do well.
And I know that you agree, off that, you had sent me that part in my book where it talks about serving, where I feel like the real estate investors that have the heart to serve people, that want to do good, that just like you, right? You were in the situation where you're getting foreclosed on. Somebody came in to the short sale. They helped you. They served you, right? They of course, I'm sure they made a great profit, but they probably weren't just concerned with that. They were also concerned with doing the right thing, helping you the best that they could, providing you a level of certainty. And now as professionals, we get to turn around and do that same thing for other people. So I think having more people like you as investors in the market is the best possible thing we could have. So
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right. So let's get in. We got just a couple more minutes. Let's dig into a few questions. Okay. All right. So this is our lightning lead round. All right. So Jeremy, just answer these questions as they come in. Digital or traditional? Quick, pick your preferred lead generation medium.
Digital.
Okay. Your favorite tool. What's one lead generation tool you can't live or work without?
SEO.
Okay. Best book. Which book on marketing or sales do you think every real estate investor should read?
Flip the Script, Oren Klaff.
All right. Number one metric. What's the top metric you should track in your lead generation campaigns?
Lead conversion.
Lead conversion. Okay. Quick win. What's one quick win our listeners can implement today for better lead generation?
Make sure you follow up.
Okay. Personal touch or automation? Which do you lean on more for lead generation?
Personal touch.
Personal touch. I love it. Most overrated trend. What lead generation is currently overhyped?
Oh my God. Virtual, cold calling, texting, you name it. There's a whole bunch of them. PPL.
Yeah, we speak the same language. Underrated strategy. What lead generation strategy deserves more attention?
Direct mail.
Direct mail. Okay. One big no-no. What's one lead generation mistake to avoid at all costs?
Feeling that you can spend more to get more leads.
Good. Future bet. What's the next big thing in real estate lead generation?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I don't think there's going to be any bells and whistles that come around that are going to change anything. I think it's going to be more the basics of what we're doing now that are going to continue to get better because the competition is going to go away because they can't afford to spend the marketing.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, there's all the talk of AI and how that's going to change the world, and it will in its own way. Yeah. But I think like many industries, like real estate, there's changes happening, but it's consistency, just continuing to figure out what works and doing it over the long term.
Yeah, I haven't seen benefits of AI. We've tested it a few times. Haven't seen it work well for us yet.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy, where can our listeners find you so they can dig in and learn some more about you?
Yeah, man, I appreciate you asking. So if you're on Facebook, go to our REI Freedom Facebook group. It's a private group. We're in there and we provide tons of value with our great Dan Toback, who's a wealth of knowledge in himself. And in there, we have some free resources to give away, like our top sales techniques for more deals, bigger deals with less cancellations. We're all about teaching people how to provide value and have those sales skills, not sales skills, but talking skills, communication skills to provide value and get properties locked up at a lower value or lower number so you can make more money helping people. Go to that group, REI Freedom Facebook group, a ton of free resources there. Ask as many questions as you can. We'll always try to answer them.
Awesome. Such good stuff. Podcast listeners, if you need to, go back and re-listen to this episode. There was so much value dropped in this conversation. I would say, like, if a person really dug in and picked up on all the nuggets that were dropped, I mean, there's easily 6 figures worth of value in this episode. So Jeremy, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, man. It was such an honor. Thank you so much.
All right, you bet. Thank you.
This episode is over, but we're not done here. For tons more actionable advice, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Ready to get help from Mark directly? Visit marklaneeducation.com to schedule a consultation and kickstart your lead generation strategies right away. We'll see you next time on More Leads, More Deals, More Profits with Mark Lane.